Hello! Thank you for joining our 9th Open Science event. As we all know, smoking causes serious illnesses including lung cancer and cardiovascular disease. Smoking is a global health problem, and although the risks of smoking are well known, there are about 1 billion smokers in the world to date, and, according to the WHO, this number may not significantly decrease in the coming years. The best thing any smoker can do is to quit tobacco and nicotine altogether, but many don't. So, what can be done? Alternatives to cigarettes can play a role in moving adults who would otherwise continue smoking away from cigarettes. Smoke-free alternatives, when significantly substantiated and manufactured under appropriate quality controls, are a better choice than continued smoking for the large population of adults who don't quit. Consumers have different tastes and needs, and this is why a range of alternatives that are acceptable to adult smokers are needed. But what is the difference between an e-cigarette and a heated tobacco product? Are all e-cigarettes essentially the same? How does a nicotine pouch differ from a snus? All questions many would like to know the answers to. While cigarette alternatives are available in many countries, there may be a lack of accurate information about them. Indeed, there may be misinformation, including how they compare to cigarettes. In this upcoming Open Science event, we will discuss this and the potential these products have to transition people away from cigarettes and reduce harm. 4 of our leading experts will be discussing all these topics. And the event will be moderated by former journalist Suki Heya. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to this 9th Open Science event, coming to you live from the Cube in Neuchâtel, the home of PMI Science. I am your host, Suki Heya, for this event, which will essentially be in 2 parts. The first part will be with our panelists and I discussing smoke-free products, smoke-free future, smoke-free world. And the second part, we will open it live to the audience who will be able to ask questions via a chat box. The live audience that is with us today can do that via a QR code. And of course, the people who are watching on screen can do that in the chat box. And what we would like you to do is just have a look at the questions that have been asked already. And if there's anything similar that you are about to ask, please like that question instead of asking a new one. It just helps with the flow and helps with prioritizing questions and getting as much questions in as we potentially can. If we don't answer all of those questions today, of course, you can go on the PMI Science website, whereby a wealth of information is there for you, which will be able to fill in the blanks for you as well. And also, this event is actually being recorded, so you can see this event, I'm assured, from tomorrow onwards as well. And finally, there's a feedback survey, which I all encourage you all to do, because it informs our next event, as it has done today, where we're talking about products and the smoke-free world. But before we get into it, I think it's important that you hear from our panelists who are with us today and our experts. I'm going to start over there. Matthias, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
Of course, with great pleasure. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Cube. Welcome to Neuchâtel. I'm Matthias Beutler. I'm a mechanical engineer by education. Joined PMI 25 years ago in different roles in quality and manufacturing, operations, product development, and now running product category management as VP PCM for the heat not burn category. Welcome again.
Thank you. Davide?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Davide Chouchon. I'm a scientist. I spent most of my career working in toxicology and preclinical research. I joined Philip Morris 10 years ago, and today I'm covering the position of RRP program leader, and my role is really to lead and coordinate all the life science activities to scientifically assess our e-vapor products.
Giselle?
Hello, Giselle Baker. I'm an epidemiologist and biostatistician by training. I joined Philip Morris just over 10 years ago, And today I am the Vice President of Global Scientific Engagement. So it is a great honor to see so many people here today that I've met in the past in many different ways, and to also welcome those online who we've engaged with or will start to engage with going forward. Thank you.
And finally, but not least, Rob.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Robert Emmett. I am an electronic engineer by education. I've been with Philip Morris 27 years, and I've had many roles in operations, product development, product research. And I'm here before you today as head of product integration for oral smokeless products.
Thank you all. Pleasure to have you with us today. So the vocal cords are now fluid. Let's get into it. Let's kick off in true World Cup style. I'm going to ask a quick questions first to just gauge where we're at. Giselle, I'm going to come to you first. And I suppose this is a question that we get a lot. Why do adult smokers need smoke-free products? Isn't quitting the best option?
Well, I think when you consider smokers, the best option for their health is to quit tobacco and nicotine altogether. But the fact is, many will not. In fact, there are 1 billion smokers in the world today, and according to the WHO, there'll continue to be 1 billion smokers for the foreseeable future. And this is the population that smoke-free products are for. Adult smokers who would otherwise continue to smoke. We need to do something for them as well.
And there are a lot of alternatives, Matthias. But do smokers need more than one alternative?
Well, absolutely yes. No matter how hard we try, I don't think we'll ever succeed. I don't believe we'll ever succeed to have a smoke-free product that tastes, works, and feels exactly the same as a cigarette. And even if we would, within the cigarette world, there are a lot of different tastes, experiences, strengths, and preferences. So if we really want to move this 1 billion adult smokers to better alternatives, we need to cater to their different needs, and therefore there is space for a palette of taste, rituals, affordability levels, etc. That makes space for a portfolio in different categories indeed.
Thank you. And just before we move on, can people just switch their mobile phones off? I know we're used to a virtual world, but we get into just put your phones on silent or turn them off. Thank you very much. Davide, a question for you. We have quite a few alternatives already, but is there like a common thread, a common theme that knits them all together?
Sure. Let me drive you through a slide I prepared. It's a very simple grid, but I think we can plot on that the entire PMI product portfolio. Very simple. We can have inhalable products, so products that generate an aerosol that can be inhaled by consumers, and non-inhalable products, in this case, products that can be used orally. We can also differentiate between products that contain tobacco as a substrate, so we have tobacco-based products, and products that don't, so nicotine-based products. And all our products can actually be plotted on that simple grid.
Okay.
Can I just pick up on that?
Yeah, I was going to ask you actually, Rob, and I've asked Davide instead. But let's ask you as well the same question in essence. Is there a common thread that links all these together?
Yes, actually there's two. The first common thread I really want to talk about is that smoke-free products do not burn tobacco. It's really important that combustion and burning do result in a smoke that is a toxic aerosol that contains solid particles, liquid droplets, and high levels of chemistry. And so developing a series of portfolio products that can reduce the amount of harmful and potentially harmful components really does result in a reduced exposure for adult smokers that will continue to smoke. Second point is nicotine. In general, most of our PMI smoke-free products do contain nicotine. Nicotine is addictive. It's not risk-free. And so where we're at, harm reduction is really about meeting the smoker where they are. So nicotine is an important part of smoking, as well as the ritual and the taste. But we need to give smokers encouragement switching away from cigarettes. And so, yes, smoke-free products do contain nicotine as well.
Okay. Let's go into that sort of deep dive now. I'm going to go and ask each and every one of you a series of questions. I'm going to start off with you first, Giselle. Before we go into the specific categories of each, let's just define some sort of principles, if you like. What's the criteria for a smoke-free product to be able to sort of reduce population harm, would you say?
Well, I mean, there's two pieces of it when you're really talking about having an impact at a population level. First, you have to have a product that reduces the risk to the individual. But then you have to have the right population and a large amount of them switching to these products. So you need adult smokers who would otherwise continue to smoke to give up their cigarettes and give them up completely to switch to these new products. But at the same time, you need to minimize the non-smokers who would actually start using the product. If you can get that balance right, that's when you can have a true impact at the population level.
And that satisfaction piece is so important as well, isn't it? Just tell us why that is.
Well, if you think about it, you could have the best product in the world for reducing the harm from smoking. But if it's not satisfying and people don't use it, you're not going to have a benefit at the population level. Every individual who switches to it will be in a good space, but at a population level, the impact will be almost zero.
Okay, so given the various offers out there, which one is, the best to try as opposed to quitting? After quitting, which one is second best, let's say?
Well, there is no second best.
Right.
Because there is a best for each individual. For any person who's continuing to smoke, getting them away from cigarettes, providing them a product or combination of products that actually allows them or encourages them to give up cigarettes altogether is the best product for that individual. When you look at a population, each person could be using different products, different product combinations that get them away from cigarettes. But honestly, that's why you can't get to what is the second best product.
Okay. So moving on to the systems themselves, and specifically, Mateusz, tobacco heated systems. As we know, the most common or well-known heated tobacco system is IQOS from Philip Morris themselves. Can you explain the concept behind it?
Sure, with pleasure. Well, as its name indicates, it's a heated tobacco product. So we said it before, the real problem that generates the toxic compounds in cigarette smoke is combustion. So the whole idea is you take tobacco and you heat it to a temperature that is going to be high enough so that you can aerosolize nicotine and flavor. But that same temperature has to be low enough so that you are below combustion levels. And finding this sweet spot to release nicotine and flavors, but not the compounds generated by combustion, is the very idea behind heat-not-burn products.
And in theory, that sounds quite simplistic and straightforward, but I'd imagine in practice it's not.
Yes, indeed. No, it's very complicated. We actually started, you can see some of the history on this chart. We started in the 80s with a lot of trial and error, a little more errors and even trials, to be very honest. The first commercial real failure in 2006 in Zurich, the one to the left here, was actually a failure from a commercial perspective, but a great win from a learning perspective. It was very complicated, cumbersome, didn't really work this well, but we learned a lot. We continued the journey because we knew inside that this was the right thing to do. Our senior management back then was absolutely adamant. So you can see that in 2014, through technology advancement and product development, we had our first real successful product that we launched commercially in Japan and in Italy in test markets in 2014. And since then, it has been a continuous journey of improvement, fixing pain points, working on the robustness of the devices, working on the taste palette of the products. And right now, I think we can really start to say that we have a category in front of us with 20 million smokers that already switched and left cigarettes behind.
Well, we can see the evolution of the product there. I'd imagine lots has changed, but has anything remained the same?
Well, what's the same in any of our systems, and you can see four main blocks here on this chart. The common point is there a system, a device, a consumable, a device that heats a tobacco-based substrate to this temperature high enough to extract nicotine and flavor and low enough to prevent combustion. That is what is common to all. Top left is our blade heating system, where that's the essence of what we've done until now. And the whole idea, you have a carefully prepared tobacco substrate, you have a blade in the device, and through consumer inserting the consumable, you will have the blade enter inside the tobacco plug, heating it radially from the inside for optimal heat distribution. Great product, brought us where we are today. A number of liabilities, including the need for cleaning, which is a big issue. I'll come back to it in a second. If you move to the top right, you have the pin-based heating system. That's our partner, KT&G, the Korean tobacco industry company. We're competitors in Korea, but partners around the world, where they have a pin-based system. It's essentially the same. It's just that the pin is more robust and solid than the blade. It breaks less often, but fundamentally it works very similarly. If you move to the bottom left, that's our newest innovation called IQOS Illuma, which is using an induction system. So the pain point of cleaning that we said we had, and this blade breakings and not optimally entering the tobacco, we solved it pretty much all by having a small piece of metal in the tobacco plug of every consumable. In the device, we do not have a blade, we do not have a pin. We have an induction coil, which actually, through the energy you give to the coil, you generate a magnetic field that will excite the susceptor and provide the heat to the system. Again, very easily explained, but tough to make.
Yeah.
But we got there. And then bottom right is our latest innovation, which is the oven heating system. A simpler system than the only one on this page where you heat from the outside. Simpler to manufacture, simpler consumable, more affordable device, more affordable consumable. And the reason we do this is back to people need choice. We also need an affordable solution. We just launched this in the Philippines 2 weeks ago. We're launching in Colombia in the next couple of days or weeks. And this is our offer to really have a price point that caters to the need of LMIC market, which represents, give or take, 400 million out of the billion adult smokers that we're after, as Giselle said earlier. So very important development at this price point.
You've touched upon it, but what's the rationale behind having these different types of products in the heated tobacco category?
So besides the technology advances and the innovation where you improve the product, like the cleaning, which was a pain point, the affordability is a very important one. So that affordability pain point is a big deal. But I would add to that one more, which is taste. So imagine in your kitchen, you take the same ingredients and you heat it or you cook it differently. You get to a different outcome. And using different systems to treat the same input differently is one of our toolboxes to really expand the taste space and cater to the different needs and preferences of our adult smokers.
Okay, so we got blade heating, and correct me if I'm wrong, pin heating, oven heating. Are you done with development now? Have you had enough, or you're going to go back for some more?
Okay, I'm in Christmas spirit. Apologies. Sometimes I wish, waking up in the morning, that we would give ourselves a rest, but no, it's the beginning. It's a beginning of a journey. I think it's nascent steps, good products, good successes, 20 million consumers that switched. Make the math. There's 980 to go. I don't think the products we have today will be the products that we exactly have tomorrow, and we'll keep on the journey. We have a lot of journey in front of us, and we are resolved and energetic about it.
I can't let you off by, we're at an open science event, so what's the scientific assessment behind these heated tobacco products?
Sure. Well, this building, and I think many of you have seen the labs today and a number of the things that we do. So there are a number of straightforward things, easy to understand, pretty easy to substantiate, whether it's less smell, no ash, no teeth staining for the consumers. But the real deal is what does it do to me? What does it do to a population, right? So there we're very busy using what we call our assessment strategy, where the first thing you look is, by eliminating combustion, you reduce the formation of toxic compounds in the aerosol compared to a reference cigarette smoke. 90 to 95% less formation of these harmful compounds. This reduced formation you then demonstrate that they will translate into a reduced exposure at the individual level. I receive less and it exposes me less. And that's an entire other area of science. And then from this reduced formation, you will go and demonstrate reduced risk. And this risk at individual level. And then through all the work that we do, inclusive in perception, behavioral assessment studies with consumers, you translate that reduced risk into reduced harm, back to the equation that Giselle was talking about before. And that's the backbone of our scientific assessment, which is obviously making a lot of people around the Cube busy every day, including a lot of external partners, but that's how we root our development. It's all in science.
Okay. Your vocal cords are very warm now, so we'll move on to Davide. Today, in fact, the UK has said their smoking prevalence rates have gone down, the lowest on record, and e-cigarettes are sort of becoming more prevalent. And that's what we're kind of used to talking about, I suppose, is e-cigarettes are known worldwide. There are many different variants out there. How do they work in principle?
Yeah, so you're right, there are so many variants out there. On the marketplace, you can find, products belonging to the open tank systems, so where consumers can refill their device with the liquids purchased separately. You have the closed tank systems, so where consumers can buy pods and replace them, or disposable. Now here in this slide you can see our two main products in the e-vapor space. We have the IQOS VEEV, which is a closed tank system, and Viba, currently commercialized in Canada, which is a disposable device. Now, irrespective of these differences, an electronic cigarette is very simple. Actually, we can use IQOS VEEV to exemplify the constituents, the main constituents of an electronic cigarette, that consist basically of battery, some electronic components, an heating element, and a liquid stored in a container. Now, what they have in common is that all electronic cigarettes do not contain tobacco, but they generate an aerosol that can be inhaled by consumers. And most importantly, this aerosol contains significantly lower levels of harmful constituents compared to cigarettes.
Okay. Is there any pin heating, oven heating, any other heating type within e-cigarettes, or is it done the same way?
Indeed, also in the e-vapor space are quite creative, I have to say. There are different technologies that we can use to vaporize the liquid. Now, most of the electronic cigarettes out there use the so-called weakened coil technology, which is the first one, the oldest, and also the simplest in the category. Briefly, there is this heating coil wrapped around a wick, and the liquid is carried to the heating element via the wick to be vaporized. Now, over the last years, we have seen, many other products with different technologies that are emerging. We can mention, for instance, the ceramic heating, or the metallic mesh, which is actually the core technology of our IQOS VEEV. Now, irrespective of the heating engine, I think what is very important is to make a great product is to master three aspects. So the first is a consistent flow of liquid versus the heating element, a regular heating, and the right temperature. This is absolutely fundamental, because if you don't master these aspects, you can have an overheating, and this leads to thermal degradation of some liquid components, and in this way you can compromise the quality of your aerosol. Now, in all our products in PMI, we have a series of control principles that are built into the design of the product in order to avoid this overheating and ensure a consistent aerosol generation, and also at the end this translates into a consistent experience for our consumers.
So different devices, different liquids, and different flavors as well? Why
Yes.
is that?
This is a very rich topic as well.
Yeah.
There are thousands of liquids out there. Now, most of them contain propylene glycol and vegetable glycerins that are called also, or known as the aerosol formers, because once vaporized, they make the aerosol, okay? Then you have nicotine. Nicotine can be extracted from tobacco leaves or synthesized. Now, it's very important here to have to ensure that you have high purity nicotine. We should use, in general, we use a pharmaceutical grade nicotine. There are many products out there, different nicotine levels from 0% to 5-6%. And finally, you have flavors.
And just finally from you, Matthias mentioned some positive aspects of switching to heated tobacco products. How does that compare with e-cigarettes?
Well, the working principles are the same, right? In electronic cigarettes, we do not have combustion, right? Hence, we don't have smoke, we don't have hash, less smell, less stain on your teeth compared to cigarettes. But most importantly, the absence of combustion allows us to generate an aerosol which has substantially lower levels of harmful constituents. If we take, for instance, the IQOS VEEV example with the mesh technology, with this device, we can generate an aerosol that contains more than 95% less harmful chemicals compared to cigarettes.
Okay, thank you. Now we move to a completely different product. Rob, this is your chance to shine, so to speak. These are products that you put in your mouth, I believe. It seems alien to me. I'm from the UK, so e-cigarettes are, big there, and so are heated tobacco products. Where did this idea originate from that you put tobacco in your mouth?
Thanks, Uki. Good question. Let me try and demystify that a little bit. As far as we can tell, oral tobacco, oral nicotine, is the oldest form of tobacco consumption. Two funny anecdotes I can share with you is that it's widely discussed in science. Humans stood upright 3 million years ago. Tobacco has been on the planet since the creation, but we only mastered fire 1 million years ago. So there was a 2 million year period of herbivores strolling around the planet looking at what they can eat. So it's only logical to assume that tobacco was consumed orally. My favorite one is a story about Swedish fishermen. At night, in a storm, it was very difficult to light the pipe. Matches got wet and they couldn't light the pipe, so they put the pipe tobacco in their mouth.
Okay.
So just two funny anecdotes there. But look, there's a lot of historical content about oral tobacco. On this diagram, I showed the 5 top types. It can be loose, it's original, which is slightly more moist in a bag, and it can be a nicotine pouch that doesn't contain tobacco. These top 3 are really popular, the popular products in America. So there's about 11 million daily users of these products. And the bottom, if we take a look at the bottom, the white one is very similar to the original, it's just not as moist, so it looks cleaner. The all-white product is kind of the reverse. It has a small amount of tobacco, but quite a lot of cellulose inside. And then the nicotine pouch is really just no tobacco, tobacco-free.
And this might be a naive question, but how does it work? I know I said put it in your mouth, but there must be some science behind it.
I've worked with this product for 4 years, and it looks amazingly simple, but there's an awful lot of science behind it. So in this drawing, there's a very few simple components to walk around. So there is a bag. There is a bag that's made of cellulose fibers. It's often called a non-woven fleece. So this forms a bag. Inside are powders. There are cellulose, pharmaceutical-grade nicotine, flavors, binders, and a pH buffer. The pH buffer is probably the most important thing because with a high pH, the nicotine is released quickly. However, it can cause irritation. So finding the right balance between around 8.2 on the pH scale is where we try to engineer the product for convenient release of nicotine and a comfortable situation. Now, how does it get used? The user places it under their lip, between their gum. It's an experience that lasts for up to half an hour, where the nicotine is extracted from the pouch via the saliva, and it's absorbed by the mucal membrane into the bloodstream.
Okay. So
does that help?
Kind of. So tell me about PMI's nicotine pouches, because you're obviously working in that area very, very closely,
Sure.
so you'd probably have a good idea of what's going on there.
So PMI, we commercialize a nicotine pouch under the brand name Shiro, which is Japanese for white, because they are white. Everything we do is food-grade ingredients and pharmaceutical-grade nicotine. And we have a range of flavors. Up to 60-70% of the current market is in menthol or citrus, and so we have a flavor, a menthol flavor. Yes.
And is there any data about switching from cigarettes to these products and any potential benefits that they could have?
Well, these products, I think we can agree these products have got a very long history, right? And they have no device, there is no heat, there is no aerosol, they deliver to the lungs. And so finding comparison is quite difficult. But Sweden has the lowest smoking rates in Europe and the highest use of oral tobacco products. And the second thing, Swedish products have actually gone through a full epidemiological study. And this data, over a 20-year period, has shown the decline of cigarette smoking occurrence. And it's gone to the FDA for modified risk tobacco product application. So yes, there's quite a lot of data out there on these products.
That is absolutely fascinating. Thank you very much, guys. I'm going to open this up to the floor now, and we're going to start asking some questions. Remember how you can ask them. You can ask them via the QR code only. I'm sorry you won't be able to shout out or ask that way. There's a QR code, a chat box. Just type in there, and then we'll be able to look at the screen, and the most popular questions will be asked first, and then that's how it works. And the same with people online. There's an actual chat box that you're able to do. So if you can just look at the QR code, take a picture of it, you'll be directed straight to the chat box. And there you can type in your questions and we can get the answers to them as soon as possible. A reminder that this session is being recorded. You can obviously view it on pmiscience.com from tomorrow. And any questions that we don't cover today, hopefully you'll be able to go to the website to get them. So without further ado, let's get straight to it. Let's kick off, as they say, in World Cup parlours. The first question I've got here, there's a metal piece inside, and this has got a lot of votes at the moment. There's a metal piece inside the tobacco stick for induction. Does this introduce new hazards? What about the environmental impact? Is that for you, Matthias?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Look, like any product we develop, we start through a series of product development de-riskings. One of the very important portions, what we call the use hazards analysis. So are we introducing any risk with this product? And in this case, I mean, it's a very, very valid question. In theory, yes. So the whole point, first on disposal, on the environment. Responsible disposal of used sticks is critical. And the right place for a used stick is either in a collection bin or in your trash bin, never in nature. To be very honest, the smell of a used stick versus the smell of a used cigarette butt is so different that there is no excuse anymore for throwing used sticks in nature. And that is the right way to prevent on the environmental side. In terms of the risks, we do the use hazard analysis and we look at it. Obviously, it's encapsulated within the heat stick, so there is no sharpness that's apparent when the product is used normally. We also look at any risk of wrong use by adults, misuse and all of that has been cleared. We're pretty confident on this point. We're left with one area that often people ask me about, which is what happens if an infant accidentally gets in contact with a stick? Well, and there the risk, and it's a lot of ifs, so that you get to the infant getting into contact, eventually putting it into his or her mouth, and eventually ending up swallowing it. And that is where the risk could start to manifest itself. But even in these cases, which we track meticulously through adverse events, serious adverse events tracking, our medical team is on it, we have at this stage always seen that it gets naturally extracted through the normal pathway, and that we have no issues at any point that we've seen that we needed to have an external extraction or a surgical operation.
Okay, thank you. This is a question I suppose we need to be firm on here. How can we prevent youth uptake? Giselle?
Well, I think the first thing to be clear on is when you're talking about youth, there's no such thing as prevent. The goal has to be to minimize, because I think almost if you get, it's a challenge to youth. I think the most important thing is to start with awareness, making sure that these things are not out there and available to youth. So you have the regulatory pathways of, from an advertisement restricting sales, of age and all of these things to really minimize people's awareness and access to them. And then you can look at what we can do as a company to be responsible from the marketing perspective. How do we make sure that our advertising and our marketing of these products is aimed and directed directly at the target audience, which is adult smokers? And then how do we sell them, ensuring that the people are aware of what these products are and what they're not. So who are they for? Smokers. They're not risk-free. That, you know, non-smokers should not take them up. And then in the sales place, making sure that when you're selling these products, are we checking? Are the people smokers? Are they using and consuming nicotine already? And therefore, this may be a product that has the potential benefit for them. All of these things have to come together to really minimize the youth uptake of these products.
And maybe I can also comment on that. On top of the responsible sale and marketing practices that Giselle was mentioning, we are also continuing the development, and also we are currently testing new emerging technologies and tools to really strengthen our efforts to guard against the unintended use. For instance, in IQOS VEEV today, we offered the possibility to our consumers to lock or unlock their device, and this is one of the measures, for instance, that we are putting in place to limit and to minimize youth access.
Okay. We have a question here, probably from one of your competitors. How does your tobacco heated system compare with Glow? Matthias?
I can take that. Well, Glow is, for everybody's context, Glow is the tobacco heated system from company BAT, one of our biggest industry peer. To make it short, there are significantly more commonalities than differences between Glow and our platforms. And if you remember this chart with the 4 systems, the closest proxy to Glow would be our external oven heating system, the one we just launched in the LMIC countries in Philippines and Colombia. It heats the tobacco from the outside, just like our platform. The substrate, the tobacco treatment is pretty similar, what we call a cut filler type system. And from an aerosol perspective, again, as there is no combustion, and there are versus our products in a similar range as temperature, so the aerosol is going to look reasonably similar. So much more commonalities than differences, and a serious competitor to our external heating platform.
Okay, thanks. This next question, I'm surprised it hasn't got more votes, really. When will you stop selling cigarettes? Who would like to go for that one?
I mean, I can start with this one. When we talk about stop selling cigarettes, obviously, right now there's 1 billion smokers out there buying cigarettes. We could stop today, but there are plenty of other products in the market, and smokers would just switch to the next tobacco product and continue to smoke. So the idea here is really to incentivize us as a company, as well as the tobacco industry as a whole, to focus on products that are less harmful, that allow smokers to switch to these products. And then, of course, setting the regulatory framework to make this transition happen fast. We need people to know about these products. Smokers aren't going to switch to a product because it exists if they don't know it exists, if they don't have access to information, if they don't know why they should switch. These are all extremely important components of getting smokers to quit smoking cigarettes. I mean, we're talking here about a very complex and hard behavioral change, and just hoping that it happens because the product exists is, I think, fairly simple, but not realistic in the sense that we all know smoking is harmful, yet there's 1 billion smokers who continue to smoke cigarettes. We need to really make products available that are satisfying, make sure people know that they're available, and are informed as to why to switch, and then set the framework so that you can actually speed this up and get people switching as fast as possible. And that's when cigarettes can really go away.
And on that note, talking about switching, why would someone switch from cigarettes to a pouch, which I suppose the ritual is completely different in that respect, isn't it?
It is, it is. Now, as we've discussed, there's 1 billion smokers out there. And there's 1 billion journeys. There's 1 billion reasons why someone should quit, how they quit, and we need to make our portfolio available so that they find a familiarity in that moment, that they have a product, as Giselle just mentioned, that fulfills their nicotine delivery, their flavor component, their flavor needs, that makes it easy to switch. You know, the risk continuum only happens when you step away from the cigarettes.
Okay. What are your clinical studies saying for tobacco-heated systems, Matthias?
I can take that. Well, look, we're probably not going to go into every detail here, but they pretty much remember this backbone of formation, exposure, risk, and harm. They provide backing to all of this continuum, right? And I think a lot of our data is published on pmiscience.com, etc. So a lot there can be discussed. What's very interesting in my view as well is what is the external world saying about our products, right? And we submit our clinical science, we submit our clinical evidence to regulatory agencies around the world. We typically were very proud a couple of years ago being granted the modified risk tobacco product application for a tobacco heated system in the US by the Food and Drug Administration. That was a major milestone when the agency, the FDA, tells us your product is appropriate for the promotion of public health. And that is exactly the kind of alignment that we are trying to seek with these agencies. And it doesn't stop in the US, right? I mean, whether it's Public Health England, the UK Committee for Toxicity, the National Institute for Public Health and the Environment in the Netherlands, National Institute for Public Health in Japan, and several others are all joining to review our science, produce their own, and actually look favorably to our products, because that's the right thing to do.
Just a quick breather. So if anyone's struggling with the technology or whatever, it's here specifically in Neuchâtel, you'll have an opportunity to speak with the presenters afterwards as well. So if there is a question that you feel hasn't been answered, you'll get another chance to ask that question as well. So back to the questions. This is the one that probably is the million-dollar question. Which one of the products presented is the least risky? Who wants to have a go at that? You want to have a go at that?
Well, I think it's almost similar to the question on which is the second best. I mean, we can look at exactly what are the toxicants in each one, what are the levels of those toxicants in each of the products. But ultimately, it's going to be how people use the products that's going to determine the risk. If they switch to one product but continue to smoke cigarettes, it's going to be more risky, despite the fact that that product that they're using in addition to cigarettes has less toxicants. So I think we can look from the simplicity of it. The pouches with nicotine probably have the fewest toxicants that you would be exposed to, but ultimately what's going to be the least risky for any smoker is the product or combination of products that help them give up cigarettes altogether.
Okay.
I just want to comment that we don't compete with each other.
Right.
There's no competition between us for the least risky product, right? So we're representing the whole portfolio, and we're all focused. And I think you summarized it earlier where you say from the risk of smoking down to 90% reduction in harmful and potentially harmful constituents. Are we really going to discuss between 94 and 96, right? As long as we're greater than 90, it's a significant reduction.
Okay. Is it possible that your smoke-free products prevent smokers from quitting as they can now simply switch? Davide, you want to have a go at that one?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to clarify. I mean, these products are not cessation products. These products have been developed for smokers that are looking for better alternatives than cigarettes. So a smoker that would like to quit, they just do it. This is the best way to do, the best thing to do, right? So these products, of course, can help, in some cases, smokers to quit nicotine use altogether, but they are not designed or intended for that.
I suppose this next question is about availability of products in different markets in different countries. Now, you know, e-cigarettes are quite popular. They're out throughout the world. They're used in many different territories. The pouch, I presume, wouldn't be available in as many countries. Are those products successful?
Yes, our journey really started in January, where we commercialized our first pouches in the Nordics. We are rolling out. We're currently present in 11 countries, in Finland, Denmark, Sweden. We are going into Austria. So we're present in 11 markets. We've just launched in Indonesia, and we have another Southeast Asia country going to be launched in the next 2 weeks. So we are actively rolling out these products.
And this one's got your name on it. Is there a future for snus and or nicotine pouches outside the Nordic countries?
Very much so. Very much so. It's interesting. There is a big switch to go from an inhalation product into an absorption product. There is a change. However, everyone has a moment. I keep talking about the moments, but there is a moment where pouches make sense. They make sense to certain people, that it fits into their daily routine and they're able to leave cigarettes behind.
Okay. This is an interesting question. Are you recording possible side effects related to your products? Who would like to take that one?
I can take that. Yes, that's the short answer, of course. So we do have a complete system to record any form of consumer complaints or consumer inquiries that we may have. And actually not very dissimilar to what the pharma industry does. We have a very early on differential. Is this a consumer complaint? Is this an inquiry? Or is this reporting of an adverse event or a potential adverse event, right? And there, besides advising the consumers to go and seek medical advice whenever applicable, we have a separate recording system for adverse events, serious adverse events, that is continually reviewed by a medical team under the lead of our chief medical officer. Third floor, I think. And actually, this is where we have the medical doctors applying judgment and informing product development and the scientific team to dig further wherever related or important, so that this is a constant attention point that we have. Call it pharmacovigilance or the nearest proxy that we have in our context.
Okay. Just moving on to the commercial side a little bit, can the high cost of these products deter smokers from switching, especially in low, middle-income countries? Giselle?
Well, obviously, cost is a big factor. But that's exactly where the discussion today is going. A portfolio of products with different price points, with different flavors, with different components, some with electronics, others without, some with tobacco, others without. All of these things, it's not just the cost, is what's going to really drive the ability to get smokers to find a product or combination of products that help them give up cigarettes. And I think we saw in Matthias's presentation the new oven heating system, which is really looking at how do you bring that cost down to be able to expand the range and who it can be a product for.
Okay. Consider the relative risk to the individual of heat-not-burn, e-cigarettes and oral tobacco products. Clearly the risks and harm reduction are not the same. Why not focus on one safest category of product? Now, we've been here a little bit in terms of you're not competing with each other, but why not focus all your efforts in one product? Davide?
Yes, look, I think we need to have a panel of products, because this is the only way to cover the broadest range of consumer preferences. For some consumers, you know, it's more practical to use electronic cigarettes. For some other heat-not-burn products, for other oral tobacco products. The important thing is really to offer the right product for a given person, the right product that will allow him to, or her, to switch definitely away from cigarettes.
If I can, if I can compliment on this, we discussed the the other day. It was funny. The safest RRP already exists, and it exists since a very, very long period of time. Take a cigarette out of the pack, put it in your mouth, and don't light it. Just do not set it on fire. You'll have the ritual, you'll have the appearance, you'll have any form of flavor, like 1% coming out, and that's it. No harm, because no burning, not even heating. But no nicotine, no taste, no satisfaction, and no actually incentive to do it. So that exists. And people just don't switch to it because it's not satisfying enough. So back to Giselle's earlier point, no matter how much you do a perfect product, if people don't embrace it, it's not going to reach the target you're looking for at population level. And that is why we need a graduation of the different products that we have. And just to finish on heat not burn, one of the things we're very proud of with our systems is that we have the highest full conversion rate that we see across the industry, with 70+% of consumers that try it and stick to it, so they give away the last cigarette. And that is the real deal.
Anything to add to that?
Well, I just was like, if you go back to the beginning where I had the individual risk and switching, the goal here to have the biggest impact at the population level is to maximize the number of adult smokers who switch. And we know that adult smokers smoke for different reasons. So these different products, you can say what is the safest, but again, it's some people may like the ritual of smoking, and something closer and more similar to that is going to be the product that they can switch to. Others may want to give up some of that ritual, and that's where something like the pouch, maybe they don't like the concept of having to inhale and that part of the ritual, but there's some other aspect about smoking that they're not giving up. So being able to address the consumer, meeting them, like Rob said, where they are, to help them move away as fast as possible is obviously going to be the one that's going to maximize the drop in adult smokers, which is going to, at the same time, maximize the impact at a population level.
And a link to the question here, I suppose, Rob, is there's an element of experiment if a smoker switches to a pouch. What would make them do that? I know we've touched upon it already, but what would make them want to switch to a pouch?
I come back to these moments, you know. There are many, many moments. We're very inspired by what's happening in Sweden with the lowest amounts of cigarette smoke and the highest consumption switching to nicotine pouches. But it's really about the individual. And as we said, it's a billion journeys. It's a billion individual stories that make someone want to switch. Now, we can't have a billion products, but we can have products that people find familiar, that deliver the ritual, deliver the nicotine, and give a rewarding, pleasurable experience.
Okay. This is probably a question that has divided opinion within the scientific community. How can you convince those saying that heated tobacco products are just as harmful as cigarettes? Who would like to take that? Matthias?
I can give it a start.
Go on then.
Look, you don't have to take my word. You don't have to take our word. Look at the science. I would say engage, look at the science, ask question. Let's have a constructive debate. Let's look at the data, listen to the agencies, and let's work this out together constructively.
And you can probably find some of these answers on pmiscience.com as well, I presume.
Absolutely.
Okay, do we have secondhand smoke with heat not burn products? Could this be hazardous for people around me? Davide, or is that?
I think it's
more Matthias.
Yeah, so first of all, to the question, do we have secondhand smoke? No, it's a smoke-free product, so there is secondhand odor, secondhand aerosol eventually. We do run a significant number of indoor air qualities, which have rendered very compelling results, where actually it's if I remember well, and Giselle, you correct me if I'm wrong, right? We are closer between walking in a room where somebody is using IQOS actively is pretty much compared to walking in a room where a smoker is not smoking, right? And actually the nicotine and some of the compounds that a smoker after smoking a cigarette would just carry in their hair, on their skin, etc., is actually generating something when you get into a room. And the indoor air quality is really improved with heat-not-burn products, and for this factor even more so with e-vape or nicotine pouches. So very, very compelling improvement there.
Okay, time is flying by. We're just a reminder that please get your questions in now. We're coming to the sort of the end of the session shortly. Also a reminder to please fill out that feedback form, that survey. It's really important for the organisers, for people here to inform the next event. But before that, let's move on to another few questions. Is your scientific assessment carried out for all your products? That could be asked of any of you. Who wants to take that one first?
I'll start and we can go down the line.
That sounds
Yes,
like a good plan.
yes, it is. From the ingredients, the supply chain, the uptake, how the flavors and the nicotine get transferred. Yes, we study everything.
Okay, I think that.
I mean, I think the one thing to remember is each of these products are different. So the scientific assessment, when you say, is your assessment carried out for all products? A scientific assessment is carried out for all products, but it's not the same for all. When you're talking about heated tobacco products, really trying to prove and create the evidence that there is no combustion is essential before we go on. For the oral products, we don't really have to prove that combustion doesn't happen by putting a pouch in somebody's mouth. When you look at the ones that have inhalation, you're starting to look at the aerosol. There's a lot of science around trapping and measuring what's in an aerosol, a complex mixture. Saliva extraction, we're going to be doing it differently. So what we need to measure, what's important, is really looking at the product, how it works, and what you need to achieve to really substantiate what you're saying about the product and ensure that it's less harmful than cigarettes. And that is done for all products.
Yeah, we have a saying in the UK, proof is in the pudding, and this question is all about that. When will you have the first data about the impact of innovative smoking products on smoking-related diseases? Is that another one for you, Giselle?
Well, I think depends on what you're looking for. You're starting to see some of this data come out. There was a study published in Korea looking at over 5 million male adult smokers who have either given up tobacco and nicotine altogether, switched to smoke-free products, but continued to smoke cigarettes, or continued to smoke cigarettes. And they're looking at cardiovascular disease. And what you see there is a really nice dose response. The further you get away from smoking, the less risk of cardiovascular disease. So ultimately, stopping altogether had the lowest risk of cardiovascular disease, but switching to smoke-free products had still a reduction compared to continued smoking. And this is starting to get there. But the long-term studies, well, they're long-term, and they're going to be coming in the future. I think for us, the important thing is to make sure that we have those studies ongoing and that evidence is coming and that we'll have growing evidence body over time to continue to develop and really engage on this conversation on what does it mean for smokers who switch to these products.
Okay, I don't think I've ever heard of this, but how do your products compare with nicotine gums?
I'll take that one. Nicotine gums are quite often used as NRT. They're chewing gums that contain nicotine. And nicotine pouches are very, very similar in their mode of delivery of nicotine. What we've seen in nicotine gums, the ritual is slightly different, where people chew instead of nicotine pouches where you place and don't chew. So it's really about the user engagement with the product, about how they chew or don't chew the product. But functionality-wise, they're very, very similar.
Look, I can't believe how fast the time has gone. I would just like to get your final thoughts. There are questions still coming in, and hopefully we'll be able to answer those eventually. But I just want to get your final thoughts. I'm going to start off with you first, Rob. You know, we've discussed the product, we've discussed what's going on here. What would you like to say to people out there, and is there anything you kind of think we've missed?
Well, as as head of P5 as product oral products, smokeless tobacco, smokeless products, I think it's about responsible use. It's about responsible disposal. It's about adult smokers that wish to continue and having available products that are safe to use.
Davide?
Yes, look, I think it's important to highlight really the extent of the efforts that we are doing as a company in the development and the rigorous scientific assessment of these products. Today in PMI, there are more than 980 scientists, engineers, staff that are all working together to achieve our final goal of a smoke-free world. I get many times the question, when and if we will get there. I have to say, yes, we will definitely get there. Now, the pace of this transition, it's not only on us. We need new regulations to be able to communicate with consumers, to explain about, the characteristics of these products, the science behind it, and let them do an educated choice.
Matthias?
Well, I guess looking at the audience and knowing that we have a couple of hundreds people and probably much more online, I think that my closing thought is thank you. Thank you to all for coming, for engaging, for listening, for discussing, for fueling and feeding the journey of developing better products so that we can deliver a smoke-free future. And that's very, very important to us. So thank you very much for your presence.
And the last word to Giselle.
I like that. I get the last word. I think when you really think about it, there are things that we don't know today. And those require longer-term studies, and they'll come. But I don't think we should use what we don't know today to prevent progress. There is enough evidence. I mean, we're talking about 90 to 95% lower levels of toxicants being emitted. And we know what happens with cigarettes. We know if we do nothing, people will continue to smoke. They'll continue to develop smoking related to disease, and there'll be a lot of early and premature death from these diseases. So doing something, reducing the exposure. I mean, if you're talking about this much level of exposure versus this much of toxicants compared to this, there's a better spot to be. And let's move people there while we really lock down the final answers and really quantify what's happening. Let's do it responsibly. Let's make sure we are getting to the right consumers, the adult smokers, and minimize the uptake by youth. But let's do something. Let's not wait for 20 years to figure out we should have done it today.
Not quite the last word, but thank you. Just a reminder to those who may have come late, you can see or view this whole session again on pmiscience.com. Thank you for watching on the screen. Thank you for attending in person. We really appreciate your participation. It's been great to see so many faces here today. And yes, there is more information outside. There's more information on the website. But just a round of applause for our panelists who have been brilliant today. Thank you.